If your spring cleanup needs something extra to fill the rubbish bin, well, this news might offer two items to consider. It's a tale of federal largesse and a tale of missing the point in telling the tale. Hi everyone, I'm Gardner Goldsmith for MRC-TV, and I'd like to give compliments to Daily Wire's Luke Rosiak for exposing the absurdity of expensive federal programs like this one. Rosiak notes, quote, "A Labor Department program designed to train 16 to 24-year-olds to join the workforce spends more per person annually than Ivy League colleges. But participants wind up making minimum wage on average, raising questions about whether it should continue to exist." End quote. But the core of the problem is not the outcome. The problem is the unconstitutional department's unconstitutional expenditure of tax money and their immoral assumption that they in government know better than we do how to spend the fruits of our own labor. Even if the program had resulted in graduates getting high-paying jobs, the force at the heart of it, force to make people pay, and the lack of any constitutional authority ought to be what raise questions about whether it should continue to exist. According to a government so-called transparency report, this Job Corps, a relic of Lyndon Johnson's Great Society, spends up to a staggering $764,000 per graduate to train individuals who then limp into the workplace, earning a paltry $17,000 annually on average, indicating that perhaps the Job Corps' greatest value has been to show people how wasteful government can be. But of course, the waste per se is not really the key problem. The Department of Labor is a constitutional abomination. Nowhere in the U.S. Constitution, you know, the pesky document meant to clearly define and limit federal power, nowhere does it grant Congress or the executive branch authority, so-called, to create a sprawling bureaucracy meddling in employment, in training, or wage setting. The 10th Amendment is then crystal clear. Powers not delegated to the federal government are reserved to the states or the people. Yet, since its inception in 1913, the Department of Labor has thumbed its nose at this principle, ballooning into a multi-billion-dollar behemoth that justifies, so-called, again, its existence through programs like Job Corps, which make a mockery of fiscal responsibility and individual liberty. Job Corps itself, launched in 1964 as part of LBJ's war on poverty, was sold as a lifeline for disadvantaged youth, offering residential training to equip them for stable careers. Noble in theory, perhaps, but in practice, it's a case study of government ineptitude. The program's 2024 budget clocked in at $1.7 billion to operate 121 centers nationwide, serving just 14,365 students. That's an average of $118,000 per participant, with costs at some centers spiking to the aforementioned $764,000 per graduate. A family could send someone to an Ivy League university for a fraction of that, or better yet, let them keep their own money and chart their own path in the family. The outcomes? Abysmal. The transparency report reveals that 55% of Job Corps participants either drop out or are expelled, and only 20% secure employment or further education within a year of leaving. Those who do find work earn that median $17,000 annually, barely above the federal poverty line for a single person. Compare that to the private sector, where trade schools and apprenticeships routinely produce skilled workers for a fraction of the cost without dipping into the taxpayer trough. The free market, driven by voluntary exchange and competition, consistently outpaces the government monopoly. Yet, of course, Job Corps persists, propped up by for-profit contractors who, as Rosiak notes, have a vested interest in hiding the program's failures to keep the spigot from the feds flowing. Notes Rosiak, quote, "Contractors pay recruiting bonuses for finding prospects, and participants are paid to take part in the program, in addition to covering their room, board, and medical." One recent graduate told the Daily Wire that contractors conceal the program's failure to keep the cash coming, and many participants wind up working in menial jobs they could have done without the expensive training, end quote. Ah, yes. And he does not mince words about the criminality that often arises within the various campuses of Job Corps. Quote, "The Daily Wire reported this month that thousands of young people have been the victims of assault and other crimes at Job Corps campuses, including a transgender identifying girl, a biological female, who was assigned to live with a 23-year-old man who was charged with raping her. A decade of oversight by government auditors and news media has found that the program attracts criminals, and that some staff look the other way to avoid expelling members, which would lead to lost revenue or negative attention, which could jeopardize the program," end quote. No kidding. It would be nice if enough Americans were familiar with or concerned about the U.S. Constitution that they might question the very idea of Johnson's boondoggle. It began through immorality and sees more popping up on campuses. Quote, "At the Old Dominion campus with 95 enrollees, the campus officially reported 46 disciplinary infractions. At the Gary campus in San Marcos, Texas, there were 633 disciplinary incidents among 1,191 enrollees. The Oconaluftee campus in Cherokee, North Carolina, had 205 infractions over 162 enrollees, amounting to more than one per person," end quote. Oh, charming, isn't it? Of course, the more revelations about Job Corps are seen by Americans, the more chances there are for people to see the government intervention, even in job training, and how it distorts markets, how it stifles innovation and creates dependency. Job Corps doesn't empower individuals. It traps them in a cycle of bureaucratic inefficiency, offering false promises while undermining the very self-reliance it claims to foster. Moreover, the program's structure reeks of cronyism. For-profit companies like MTC and Adams and Associates run Job Corps centers, raking in millions while delivering shoddy outcomes. The transparency report highlights how these operations often conceal data on dropouts and failures, ensuring their contracts renew despite abysmal performance. The solution is simple. Defund Job Corps and dismantle the Department of Labor. Government is very bad at following market trends or predicting market needs. Return those powers to individuals and private institutions. As economist F.A. Hayek noted, the spontaneous order of free individuals making voluntary choices always trumps top-down planning. It's time to pull the plug, not just on Job Corps, but on the entire Department of Labor. Let's come closer to restoring the Constitution, unleashing the market, and respecting each individual's freedom to forge his or her own future. Anything else is a betrayal of the principles that made America great. Thank you for watching, everyone. Please like and subscribe and share these videos far and wide. Follow us on Rumble, where they don't censor us, and please share the videos with friends from there. Of course, we are still on YouTube, but they censor MRC-TV there. And you can find us over on Facebook. A lot of action on Facebook. You can find us on TikTok, on Instagram, and on X. And if you want to follow me on Gab, I'm at Gardner Goldsmith on Gab. And on X, follow me as at Guard Goldsmith. Of course, we'll see you at MRCTV.org. MRCTV.org, where you can see what the whole team is doing. And please consider donating to the Media Research Center. For MRC TV, I'm Gardner Goldsmith.